The purpose of this particular demonstration is to show you how to get a process into a Raven Office document. There's a simple process you can follow, and I'm going to give you some tips which I believe are going to help make that go much more quickly for you. So you might notice here I have a Word document open. When I open a Word document and I have Raven installed, Raven Office installed and activated, when I open up my document, I see my typical Word ribbon right here, the Home and Insert, Page Layout, and so on. You notice over here at the right, I have something called Raven. If I select this Raven option, now all my Raven buttons become active. You notice here I have a process pane, Analyze, Preview, Insert, Colorize Text, Errors and Warnings Analysis. Here's some diagram options to rotate and full screen my diagram. The glossary, which the glossary is actually stored out on Raven Cloud, so it's shareable by multiple users. I have a Save, Open, and Share processes. Again, I can save processes directly to Raven Cloud. Other users can then open those up and add them into their document, so that's a way of sharing these processes. Here's the export of that diagram to an image, an XPDL or XMI file, or to Visio. Some options we can set to help, and then to activate the licenses, you would do that here. So just a quick run through of the options here on the Raven ribbon. The first thing that I really wanted to do was to show you what the glossary looks like. When I select Manage Glossary, the default glossary comes up and looks like this, but I can simply select other glossaries as well by going to the Raven option, selecting a glossary, and we're going to do the Airline Check-in Glossary. And you'll see I have a couple of terms in here, the airline website and the traveler. One's a system, one's a person, and they're both actors. So this is where I would begin documenting my actors and objects, the terms that I want to be consistent across all my processes, and I would add them here into the glossary so that we're all using consistent names when we're referencing these particular actors or objects. So I've got that glossary selected. Now I'm just going to close the glossary manager. The next thing I'm going to do is start by creating a process pane inside of here. I recommend that while you're looking at processes, creating the diagrams, analyzing them, that you do that within this process pane. This process pane is external to the Word document itself, but it's stored with the Word document. But until I'm ready to actually insert that process into the diagram, it's nice to have this separate panel where I can work, I can look at, analyze my results, I can preview diagrams without actually changing anything inside this Word document yet. So one of the tips I would like to suggest is that you not type in a long and complex process narrative, then ask Raven to create a diagram for you, and then try to debug it. It's very difficult sometimes when I have a lot of errors that are related to each other to isolate and correct them. So instead of typing the whole thing in, let's focus on getting just a few steps in, and let's focus on getting the simple path, the basic path, the go path, whatever you want to call that. We want to get that done first. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and copy some of this text from here, paste it into here. By now this should look rather familiar to you. If you haven't watched the training session on understanding the Raven language, I highly recommend that you do that. It will help you understand how Raven parses and interprets the language inside of here. But you'll notice in every one of these sentences, I have one of the actors as the subject, which means I'm writing an active voice. I have a function for each one, which is the verb, and then I have an object. And if I change actors, I have what we call a target actor, which is where I'm sending information to. So the airline website displays the member guest login screen to the traveler, and so on. So a couple of ways that we can take a look at this. One is something called Analyze Narrative, and this is like a preprocessor. This says, Raven, go in and parse this use case and tell me if there are any errors inside of here. We haven't actually created a diagram yet, but we're going to look at some of the errors. Now you notice when it finishes, there's a checkbox, a check right here that tells me it's completed. If I want to see the highlighting in the text, I can select that here. And now I see my Actors are in blue, functions in green, objects in red. And here's my errors and warnings. I can bring that up. Well, I have no errors, no warnings. Well, I'm happy with that. That looks good. So I don't even actually have to create the diagram yet. I can simply look at the analysis results to see if I have any errors. Since this looks so good, let's put a little more information inside of here. So again, I'm going to shorten that process so you don't have to watch me type. And we'll say, let's analyze those results. And Raven again now is going to parse that entire path or that entire narrative. And I can again look to see if I have any errors and warnings. In this case, I have no errors. I do have a warning about similar terms. That is because I have something called check-in option. And then I have something else down here called complete check-in option. So Raven is telling me I have terms that are similar. Now this may be perfectly fine. I may leave it like this, or I may choose to go in and rename some of these so they're a little more clear in my use case. And that is entirely up to me how I would like to do that. So I'm happy with the way this looks. Again, focused on a few lines at a time, a basic happy path with no conditionals. And now if I want, I can even preview this diagram by selecting this. Just as a double check to make sure everything looks okay, I might preview the diagram. I can full screen it here, and here's my diagram. And I see it looks good. I don't have any breaks in my flow. I have my traveler and airplane website as my two actors with swim lanes, and you can see how information is being passed between the two. So I'm happy with that, but I still need to add some more things into my narrative. So let's close this preview and let's add in a conditional. So the traveler enters the ticket number and last name in the airline website. The airline website retrieves the itinerary. And let's add a check here. If the airline website determines that the first leg departure time is within 24 hours. And as those of you who travel know, you can't check in more than 24 hours in advance. Then the airline website displays the itinerary and the check-in option to the traveler. And actually, I could have just used this sentence right here. And then the traveler selects the check-in option, and we go through the check-in process. Otherwise, now here we are, it is not within the 24 hours. Otherwise, the airline website displays the online check-in, unavailable message to the traveler. So now I have a conditional. I've got, if it's within 24 hours, we check in. Otherwise, we get a message that says, sorry, but you can't check in. So again, I can analyze this narrative, make sure I stated my conditional correctly before I actually look at the diagram. And hopefully I typed everything correctly and we're not going to have any errors. And once that's completed, again, I've got some similar terms here, and I could go look at those, but I don't have any errors. So that looks good. So let's actually preview this diagram so we can see what that conditional looks like. And here it is. Displays the online message, and we continue our online check-in unavailable, and that ends right here. It doesn't connect anywhere. Otherwise, we go through the complete check-in process. So I've got a nice complete flow, and I've got one conditional in here. I would suggest adding one conditional at a time. My if, then, otherwise, model it, look at it, make sure it looks correctly. Now let's add another conditional in. So we're going to add a conditional in about the printing. The airline website displays the boarding pass to the traveler. Instead of boarding pass, we're going to say displays the print options to the traveler. And if the traveler selects the print receipt option, then the traveler prints the receipt and the boarding pass. And then down here, the otherwise is, otherwise the traveler prints just the boarding pass. So again, we can analyze this, we can preview it. Let's just preview this diagram because I'm pretty confident I did that one correctly, and we'll see what that one looks like. And here it is. And here is my second conditional over here. Yes, prints the receipt and boarding pass. No, it prints just the boarding pass. So another conditional. So my suggestion is happy path first, completed. Add one conditional at a time. Make sure you have your if and your otherwise clause both. Model it. Look at the model. Make sure it looks like you expected it to look. And then go add your next conditional in. By doing this, it just helps you think through this logically instead of trying to add a whole bunch of conditionals in and figuring out where they all should go. Once I've got my process in here and I'm happy with it, now I want to actually put all this into my document. So I simply go to the place where I would like for it to be, and here's my glossary. We go to Insert Table, and we're going to insert the terms table into this particular document. This is one of the really nice things about Raven Office. It's very simple to get this information into my Word document. And this is going to take all of my terms that I have used and put it into this terms section. And you can see that, well, I obviously did not get my glossary corrected. If these were in my glossary, the glossary name would show up here as well. Now let's put our narrative in here. So again, we go to the place where we want that to be, and we say Insert Process Narrative. Now it's in my document. And now we're going to insert the process diagram in here. And the last thing I might want to put in here are my test scenarios. So if I look at tables, I have something called scenarios. And this is going to give me a scenario of all the flows through my use case. These are all the paths that have to be tested in order to test this particular narrative. There's 1, 2, 3 paths through here, and there you can see what the steps are associated with each one of those paths. So once I've got this complete, now I've got a nice document with the information in here. I can begin to build and add my other pieces of information very quickly into here and get a very complete set of information in a nice format that I can then store, email, whatever I want to do with this particular document. So again, the purpose of this demonstration was to give you a process for getting your narratives into Raven. Start with basic path, few sentences at a time, model often, check your language frequently, and then add a complete conditional, then the second complete conditional, and so on. I hope this is helpful to you and helps you get your narratives into Raven Office quickly and efficiently. And again, I encourage you to look at the training video on understanding the Raven language to clarify some of these things for you. Thank you so much for watching this.